This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the town of North Haven.
I'd like to convene the North Haven Fire Commission meeting for December 17, 2019. I'd like everyone to please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have here this evening Michael Frieder, our first selectman for the election of officers. Michael, welcome. Thank you for being here. Is this, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. I wanted to let everyone know that every 2 years after the municipal election cycle, North Haven's first selectman must go to every single board and commission that the town has and help reorganize the officers of each board. So here we are now, about 5 weeks after the election. This is the third meeting that I've been at. Through the balance of this month and throughout the month of January, I'll be visiting all of the elected boards and commissions and the appointed boards and commissions. So tonight, I have 3 orders of business. The first is to have a chairperson elected for this board. The second order of business is to have a vice chair appointed. And then the third order of business is to have a secretary appointed. And that would conclude my business. Then you would move forward with your commission meeting. So without further ado, I'd like to ask for a nomination for the chairperson of our fire commission. Is there a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Pat Nuzzolillo for the position of chairman of the fire commission.
Okay, we have a nomination for Mr. Zuccarelli. Is there a second on that nomination?
I second.
Second, Mary Jane Mulligan. Are there any other nominations? Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for that vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Second order of business is to elect the vice chair for this fire commission board. Is there a nomination for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Mike Zuccarelli as the vice chairman of the fire commission.
All right, we have a nomination from Mary Jane Mulligan. Is there a second on that nomination?
I second.
Second, Mr. Nuzzolillo. Are there any other nominations? Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for that. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. And the third order of business is to elect a secretary for this fire commission. Is there a nomination for secretary?
I'd like to nominate Mary Jane Mulligan as secretary for the Board of Fire Commission.
All right, is there a second on that nomination?
Second.
Okay, so we have a nomination, we have a second. Any other nominations? Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for that vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Nuzzolillo, Mr. Zuccarelli, Mary Jane Mulligan, Jennifer Caldwell, and Mr. Capucci, who is not here right now. I'd like to thank each of you for your service on this board and moving forward in the next 2 years. Thank you very much. You play a very important role in this town government. Thank you. Have a good evening. Have a good meeting.
Thank you, Michael. We appreciate you being here and officiating over the selection of officers for our commission. And we thank you for all of your effort that you expend throughout the year for our town. We appreciate it very much. And your support of public safety. Thank you. I'd like to move on with the agenda. I'll ask for the approval of the minutes of the Board of Fire Commission meeting for November 26, 2019.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. I'd like to also ask for the approval of the special Board of Fire Commission meeting that took place on December 10th. Do I hear a second? Any objection? All in favor? So moved. The Chief's report.
Chief's report for this month, just something to keep in mind as we go forward. It's only been a few weeks since our last meeting. It's one of those times that there's not a lot of time period since we last met. So Year-to-date alarms, 2018, we're at 4,451 alarms. 2019, as we sit here today, 4,492, a difference of 42 alarms. 5 years ago in 2014, the department was at 3,941 alarms, difference of 551. So again, as we've seen in the past, we continue to trend higher. Since our last Board of Fire Commission meeting, there's been 4 ALS intercepts provided. There's been 9 incident responses to the highway. 60% of our calls were EMS related, and there were 2 calls in which we experienced a delay to a medical incident or motor vehicle accident, and none of which we were unable to respond. We've also had 317 incidents since our last meeting, 73 of which were overlapping, which accounts for 23%. Our current budget, in order to make this different from last month, I ran it through the end of December. So as of the end of December of last fiscal year, we are at 58.6. Current day, obviously, we're not quite through December yet. I'm at 47.1% current day. So that's likely going to go up a little bit, but nonetheless, we're not going to be over budget as compared to where we were this time last year. But we've got at least one more pay period still this month. Since our last meeting, the fire department has collected $109,324 in permit fees. This brings us to a total of $320,860 in fire fees collected thus far this fiscal year. Regarding the fire marshal's office, looks like 34 inspections, 10 re-inspections for a grand total of 44, 15 code violations, 23 violations corrected, so that obviously pulls in a few from the month prior as well, and 19 different plan reviews or permits. Regarding our training, it's been heavy over the last month in SCBA tactics, taking advantage of some of the things that we can do on an indoors, firefighter removal as part of a rapid intervention crew, and with the radios, while we've had the new radios now for some period of time, we just converted over to digital in the last couple of weeks. So that completely changed some of our operations in terms of penetration into buildings with radio signals and how we operate a little bit in terms of when we transition to an analog fire ground channel. So there's been some training involved in that because that's a completely different operation with radios than we've had in the past. And that's what I have for a chief's report.
Any questions of the chief regarding his report?
One quick question. When there's a delay to a medical call, what exactly happens?
Sure, so the way that we've been tracking this is anytime that there is a fire resource that would normally be dispatched to the incident, the CAD system, the computer-aided dispatch system, in the event that a fire unit is unavailable, will automatically assign a fictitious unit. It allows us to track that an occurrence took place and that we're able to then document it. So a delay simply means that I'm able to track that there was a fire unit that was requested that subsequently was not available because of other calls taking place, and then I can track how long it was before we were able to free a unit up from another scene to respond to that call. So it may be a minute or two. I mean, it could be seconds in some cases. Most of the time it's several minutes. But if at that second in time that a fire asset is requested and not available, fictitious unit is assigned. We call it ambulance 1 through 5, and we're able to track it.
And so if you're not able to respond, is there any backup mechanism? What happens then?
So the ambulance, so for a medical incident, the ambulance is responding. How long it takes to get there, we don't have any control over at this point in time. That's pending some changes, hopefully. But it just means that there was no first responder asset available to respond to provide immediate level of care.
From the fire department, but an ambulance is
An ambulance is dispatched and
dispatched.
responding.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions of the chief? Chief, a question regarding the digital radio conversion. And you spoke about that, giving us ability to penetrate in a building better than the analog system.
Correct.
Do we have any dead spots as we did with the analog, even with the digital?
It was documented, so when we implemented this level of service, we went through with the radio vendor, and literally every few hundred feet, a transmission was required, and a quality check was done to make sure that the radio level was being interpreted and was of adequate level. There were no dead spots that we could account for, and the only dead spots that we ever really had even prior to that was inside of some buildings. So there are a couple of buildings in town that we most recently required a BDA, it's called a bidirectional amplifier, and we required that BDA to be installed because of how big the complex is and the fact that when we were inside and we were trying to transmit out to our dispatch or other units or the ambulances, the signal wouldn't penetrate through the building. So a BDA system would be installed at the cost of usually tens of thousands of dollars, depending on how big the building was and depending on when it was installed. So if we were able to make that mandate during pre-construction, much cheaper. If we have to go in there after the fact when the building's already been resurrected, and then it's a different story. So what we have found is with a digital system in place now, prior to, basically in layman's terms, when we were analog, we broadcasted out of essentially one site. So you would click the microphone on the radio, and it would look for that one site, and it would basically repeat that within milliseconds of your message. So it would appear like it's in real time. With a digital system now, there's 3 sites throughout town that are looking for that signal at any point in time, and is grabbing it, rebroadcasting it, and pushing it back out from 3 sites. So that's what I mean by our penetration is better, is there's some buildings in town that you could have been, a bedroom inside of the building, some of our senior care facilities, let's say, and not have gotten out to dispatch. And that's changed.
With Amazon in town, obviously I'm assuming it's the largest building in town. Do we have any difficulties as far as communication in that building?
Sure, Amazon was one of the buildings that pre-construction phase, I required they install a BDA system.
Okay.
So there's a BDA system in that building for fire and police.
Good.
At all times.
Good.
And I got a couple more. Okay. Last month, you talked a little bit about apparatus that was out for repair.
Yes.
Can you give a little bit of an update? And I have a couple of questions about that.
Sure. So engine 2, which was the engine that was struck on the highway back in June, has been out of service since that period of time. Has been, since it was taken out of service at that time, has been and remains to this day at our vendor, New England Fire Equipment, which is a contracted vendor that services put out the bid, and it's still there to this day. I've received weekly updates on it, and it's projected to be ready to return to service sometime in the month of January, is what the projection is right now. It's looking like that's still on pace for that. Losing engine 2 forced us to place into service our reserve apparatus, and our reserve apparatus is a 30-plus-year-old apparatus that is now acting in its place at all times, leaving us with no reserves. Perhaps what you've heard me talk about in the past is once a year we need to send our apparatus out for annual DOT checks and pump checks, and we are experiencing some level of difficulty right now because when we send apparatus out for that, our reserve, which we were once able to replace it with, is no longer there. So therefore we're dropping down in the amount of apparatus we have because we've got to continue with this annual maintenance requirements. And on top of what we anticipate having maintenance go out for, what we know, so for example, I can control to some extent, within a, so many day period, I can control when an apparatus goes out of service for its annual check. I can't control when the firefighters respond to the station, go to start the engine, it doesn't start. And then that's an unanticipated out of service engine that I wasn't expecting to have, and I may already have one out that week that's out for its annual, and so that's when we start hitting that kind of crucial period of we have just enough engines to get by for one fire.
And if the amount of time that the engine that's out at the vendor right now, is that a typical amount of time that it would take to repair? Or does that have something to do with I've got 2 questions around this, around our contract, and then you had mentioned about if there was a mechanic with the fire department, how quickly would they be able to repair the equipment? Or would that delay still you'd still have some of that.
Sure, so the apparatus that got struck on the highway would be something that would be outside of the scope of what an in-house mechanic would be able to provide. It requires body work and paint and so forth and welding. That's way above and beyond. It's what a body shop would need to do. And unlike a car where you can order a new fender for it, that you can't do that with fire apparatus.
Right.
So it's really taking metal from scratch and refabricating it for the various cabinetry and body work that's on that apparatus. So I would anticipate anything to change for the timeline for the apparatus that was struck on the highway. We would still be dealing with essentially the same downtime. There was not really a delay in the insurance, no more than one would expect in a car accident. Within, I say 30 to 60 days, we had an answer and we were moving forward, and that's probably normal. Where you've probably heard some conversation about a mechanic before is for that day-to-day maintenance.
Like the engine doesn't start.
Yeah, or like there's lights out, and so what we try to do is these apparatus are being used 24/7, and they're of varying age, and so members will report issues, and we will keep track of them, and by the time that an engine goes out for service, it normally has sometimes 20 things that are waiting for it to get fixed. It could be, this light's out and this warning light keeps coming on and this compartment doesn't latch all the way. And it could be all these different things that are associated with it. And then so those are the things that they really have the opportunity to be getting addressed on a day-to-day basis. And something to keep in mind is when we send apparatus down there to get repaired, there's a lot of departments that have their own mechanic, and there's a lot of departments like us that send it there, and we send it and it kind of waits in line sometimes, and that's where the downtime is what's crucial for us. Whereas perhaps a mechanic who was in-house who can stay on top of this and stock certain things and kind of has buy-in, right? Has buy-in to the apparatus and is part of the department and therefore wants to see the fleet remaining in service at all times, is something that we should look at in the future. But it was looked at a number of years ago and it was not successful, but it's something that we're contemplating again.
Any other questions of the chief? Hearing none, we'll accept the motion to accept.
I'll move.
Do I hear a second? Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Correspondence. I see we had any correspondence received by any commissioners, either verbally or in written form? Chief?
No, I don't have any correspondence. I'm aware of it on a day-to-day.
Okay. Unfinished business of the fire department.
I had no unfinished business listed on your agenda.
Okay. New business of the fire department.
New business, just looking for a motion from the commission to elevate 4 existing lieutenants on the career side to captains effective December 30th, 2019.
Second.
Any question on the motion to elevate 4 lieutenants to captain effective December 30th, 2019?
Some background.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good.
So this results from, we are adding staffing. We're adding 1 shift at this point in January, a 2nd shift in May, and more to follow after that with additional staffing. We're required by OSHA, 1910.120, I believe is the reference, that we have to maintain a ratio of 1 officer to no more than 7 firefighters. We are currently at that now because the shifts are at 8, so there's 1 officer per 7 firefighters. OSHA would not allow us to add additional firefighters without additional command staff, and quite honestly, it's something that's well overdue. The lieutenant rank is an antiquated rank that's been with us since the 70s. It's really intended to manage an engine or a company, what we call it in the fire department. This rank has grown into something that manages an entire shift. And much like the police department that has sergeants and lieutenants and captains, this is the same thing where there's going to be lieutenants and captains now. And it's budgeted for, it's already there, there's no additional cost, so it shouldn't be an issue.
It's been a long time coming, as the chief has indicated. We've advocated for this in the past, and we have finally included in the budget whatever the additional stipend is for the position, the difference between lieutenant and captain. I think it's going to enhance our department, and it was part of the long-term plan that the chief implemented or presented when he was hired as chief, and that this commission approved of. So I think this is certainly moving forward with that plan in the positive direction. Any other discussion regarding this motion? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion to accept.
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Very good, thank you. Sorry I screwed that up. Good of the fire department.
Good of the department, we had one career firefighter, new recruit, who successfully completed recruit school at the Connecticut Fire Academy. It was the largest class ever. I believe there were 66 graduates, and he graduated on December 6, 2019. That's all I have for good of the department.
I see our union president is here. Mr. President, any comments?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Public comment?
Yeah, I'm going to open it up to public comments. Yes.
You don't have to use that much.
Should I bring the microphone?
No, it's fine. I'm using the on camera.
Please.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening.
Sally Buemi, 5 Blossom Drive. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to you and your board members.
Thank you. Same to you and your family.
Thank you. I want to wish Commissioner Caldwell all the best as she fulfills her obligations of her oath of office, and congratulate Ms. Mulligan for her re-election to the board. I had 4 issues that I wanted to discuss tonight. The first one, I have to make some changes based on what I just heard about, you did elevate the 4 lieutenants to captains. I was writing my notes so furiously, I missed the vote.
Yeah, that'll take place on December 30th.
The swearing in.
Correct.
But you voted tonight to.
We just voted, that's
Yeah,
correct.
Okay, so I just have to quickly look at my notes because my first comments and questions are going to be a little different now. Because I was going to comment about how on, you had a special fire commission meeting on November 19th where you promoted 4 firefighters to the lieutenant position. So my question was, how many lieutenants do we have now? So it was 8, but now it's 4 lieutenants and to be 4 captains, I assume, right?
It was 4 lieutenants,
Right,
1 per shift.
right,
Those 4 existing lieutenants be promoted to captain.
right,
4 new lieutenants were promoted on whatever date you just
right.
said.
So,
So
the lieutenants will be, the minutes from the November 19th meeting said the 4 lieutenants would be sworn in December 30th, 4 new lieutenants.
correct.
And the 4 prior existing lieutenants sworn into captain also on December 30th.
Correct.
Okay, I got it now. But for a while there were 8 lieutenants.
Well, there's not, because they haven't been sworn in yet.
Yeah, okay, but as far as approved by this,
Correct.
this board, okay. So, by the way, on November 18th, which was the day before the special fire commission meeting, we had a special board of selectmen meeting, and the chief, you attended. The purpose of that meeting was to extend the fire union contract. Did you know about the November 19th fire commission meeting the next night?
Yeah, I knew about it, yeah.
Okay. I thought that might have been relevant to some of the questions that I had asked at that Board of Selectmen meeting. Will there be a pay raise for the 4 captains from
Yes.
the lieutenant? Okay, now you said it was in the budget. I can't find it. I'm on page 42 of the 1920 fiscal year budget, which breaks down the employment table for the fire department. And it has fire chief, deputy chief, fire training officer, 4 lieutenants, 30 firefighters, and then in parentheses 32, because you were adding 2 in mid-year. So where am I missing the captains?
Sure, you can check with Ed Svikowski on that. I don't know which line it was put into, but there was a line that this money was allotted for.
in,
elsewhere in the budget.
elsewhere in the budget?
Elsewhere in the budget, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it was under personal. All right, well, tomorrow night's the Board of Finance meeting.
Yep.
Now, as I said, I had to modify my comments
Sure.
because of what you guys did here tonight. And when you said it was in the budget, I immediately looked to the appropriate employment table of the current budget and didn't see it there. So I will ask Mr. Smokowski. I'll tell him that you said to ask him.
Thank you
Because
for
he
that.
loves to tell me, when I ask questions at Board of Finance, he loves to tell me to come here and ask you.
Well, maybe you should go to
So-
Chairman Monaco, but one of them will have the answer for you where it is in the budget, yeah.
So I will do that. Don't have a fit. I was here on September 24th in a good faith effort, excuse me, I'm recovering from a cold. So if I lose my voice, I'm sure Mr. Zuccarelli will be thrilled.
I lose mine too.
Okay. I was here September 24th, Chief, trying to clear up, and I thought we did clear up, the difference between the plan review, the fire fees, the plan reviews, and inspections, and who does what, consultants versus fire department personnel. And you made it very clear to me that night that the plan reviews for construction was done by both consultants and fire department personnel, but the inspections related to new construction was done by consultants only. And then you said that the other inspections, which sometimes get confused with those, which is what I call, and I think you call, the 1 to 4 year inspections, which are the statutorily required inspections of existing commercial enterprises, be it a restaurant or a store or something. Those 1 to 4 inspections, you told me on September 24th, were done by yourself, the deputy chief, and consultants. So I thought it was all straightened out until I got the town calendar. And so, I have, not much to do, so I read the town calendar. And I read this, and it says under fire department that when there's a paragraph about the 1 to 4 year inspections, and it says a fire inspector now solely assigned to this role of the 1 to 4 year inspections. So that seemed to conflict with what you said to me on the 24th. Who is that one sole person? And is it different now than what you told me in September?
No, it's
Do you
just,
want to look at the calendar where it says?
I don't think I need to. I mean,
Okay.
I might in a minute, but,
It says, the inspections are done with a fire inspector, I'm quoting, a fire inspector now solely assigned to this role, which seems to conflict with what you told me. And again, I'm just trying to get the facts of fire department. I'm not being critical at
Sure.
all. I'm trying to get a better understanding of the day-to-day operations of your department so I can be in a better position to evaluate your workshop, which is coming up in,
Few weeks.
The new year is,
Yeah.
will be here like that, right? So this endeavor of mine is to get a better understanding of operations so I can understand your
Okay.
presentation. So do you understand now why the wording in this calendar kind of confused me with what you told me on the 24th, when I finally thought I had it straight?
sure, I guess understand your confusion, but, for the average person looking at that calendar, they're not necessarily looking at workflow and who's assigned to do what. So perhaps it's being read into a little bit too much.
All right, I don't know who wrote this then. I thought.
No, I know I wrote it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not being,
So when you say a fire inspector now solely assigned to these inspections, does that mean just one person does the 1 to 4 year inspections? Or this person only does those inspections as well as other people?
as well as other people, yeah.
Okay,
Right. It really depends on what, I mean, and here's the thing you're looking for an absolute answer here. And there's not always going to be an absolute answer in this case,
Right.
because sometimes, you go out to do an inspection and you need a second set of eyes. I mean, fire code and building code are something that is really up to interpretation. And so there's not always the ability to give you an absolute, because there is sometimes that one of them may say to the other, hey, just come with me for a minute and take a look at this and just make sure I'm looking at this right. Or make, or we're getting peppered with questions from contractors and building owners and representatives, and you kind of want somebody there to help, insulate you a little bit. So there's a variety of inspections that take place on a day-to-day basis within the fire marshal's office. A majority of them are taken care of on the 1 to 4 year regular inspections by the inspector, but not all. Some of ours, I do some, the Deputy Chief Marcarelli does some. And then on top of that, there's plan reviews and so forth, yeah.
Okay. Well, right, well, the plan reviews are for new construction.
Correct.
I was.
Plan reviews, but not always
This question, I was
permits, yeah.
just focusing on the 1 to 4 for existing building. Okay. And again, I'm not the only one trying to educate myself. You might recall last year's budget workshop, Chairman, Board of Finance Chairman Monaco and Board of Finance Member Hallahan were also equally concerned about these inspections and
Sure.
who was doing what. And it is, I think, important to understand when evaluating budgetary requests, when to determine who's doing what, whether it's in-house or being contracted out to the consultants. I have 2 more to go. My next one concerns an issue that was brought up on the October 22nd Fire Commission meeting when the chief announced to the commission that the town was approached by a cell phone vendor to install a cell phone tower behind West Ridge. And the chief was very interested in wanting the commission, the fire commission, to weigh in on whether the proposed cell phone tower would impact fire operations. I don't know if you, Ms. Caldwell was not on the board at the time, but I'm hoping you recall that discussion. And the chief had gone through that it would not affect the parking of the volunteers, and that a generator might be provided, and that the FirstNet AT&T service would benefit the folks at the firehouse, and the vendor would be willing to bring fiber to the station, and then, of course, the financial incentive to the town. So based on those 5 elements, Mr. Chairman, you had said that the fire operations would not be impacted, the apparatus would not be impacted in being able to get in or out, parking would not be a problem, and that it was a win-win-win for the town, was your exact quote, and you were all in favor. Now, during the chief's presentation, he did state that this would be very controversial, and I was just wondering why none of the commissioners inquired about what that potential controversy would be, because this commission, of course, is dedicated to the health and safety of the citizens of the town of North Haven. And one of the controversial aspects of cell towers is their health risks, especially for children. And this cell tower is being put up in the shadow of Ridge Road Elementary School. There are a lot of studies going on about cell phone towers and how they emit electromagnetic radiation, EMFs, or also radio frequencies, RFs, and that some independent studies have shown the risk of cancer to be 4 times as great if you live or work within a 1/5 of a mile of a tower. And for women, the increase is 10-fold. I was also wondering why no one inquired whether this would be a 5G tower, which makes it even more controversial. And so I just wanted to throw that out there. I understand that you as fire commissioners want to make sure that your fire operations are not impacted, and it's great to bring in revenue to the town. I am, as a member of the Board of Selectmen, always in favor of that, Mr. Chairman. But sometimes we do have to consider all aspects of a proposal, and I was disappointed that none of the health risks were discussed, and I would wonder if you, Mr. Chairman, considered consulting with the Board of Ed chair first before you made your 100% endorsement of this plan, as you did on October 22nd. So I just wanted to express my concerns. There's been 1,000 studies that have said cell towers do not present an elevated risk for cancer. Most of those studies were done by, or paid for, commissioned by, and done by entities in the industry. So you have to question, if they're making a product, are they gonna, what is the result of their study gonna be as to regarding the safety of that product? Some independent studies done throughout the world that I've just started to read about, because honestly, I've been contacted by some folks. This is not an area of expertise for me at all, but I've been contacted by some folks since your October 22nd meeting, and I've been trying to educate myself, and I've just started to do that. And you know how I like to educate myself on issues, Mr. Chairman. And so I just would caution, yes, it sounds great, but, as the chief pointed out in his presentation, he acknowledged this would be controversial, and no one seemed to care about that statement or ask what the controversy would be. Well, it is a health issue. So I'm going to continue to educate myself. I don't know where the status is on this right now, but I just wanted to make those comments based on what I heard at the October 22nd Fire Commission meeting. And lastly, I want to turn to comments that you made, Mr. Chairman, at the November 26th, 2019 Fire Commission meeting. Near the end of the meeting, well, around minute 31, there was a discussion about the upcoming budget season. And you, Mr. Chairman, had mentioned at that time the fire fees collected were $211,000 to date. I know the number's higher for this month because it goes up. Again, for those watching at home, the fire fees are collected through the building department, but they're based on the fire department or their consultants, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, either the fire department personnel or consultants' review of construction documents. And we, meaning the town, through the building department, collect $8 per $1,000 of construction costs. And so that's what generates these figures, these fire fees that the chief reports to you every month.
On commercial.
On commercial, of course,
Yep.
yes. And so you had talked about the amount, which at that time was $211,000 collected, and you said, and I quote, that it was your hope to, quote, utilize those monies and gear them toward the fire department rather than going in the general fund, unquote. And you said that if that happened, the money collected from these fire fees could be put aside and utilized to purchase an apparatus as needed, either a ladder or a pumper, with the fire commission deciding. And with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, I was a little shocked at that. I think in my humble opinion, it showed a lack of understanding of how municipal finance works. I have the most recent revenue report issued by the finance office, and there is a section called Town Revenue Departments, and of course the fire fees are listed amongst about 12 to 15 others. I mean, the building department has collected over $500,000 in fees, town clerk over $520,000, community services over $120,000, the recreation department over $224,000. I mean, all these departments collect fees for a variety of services that they perform in the town. And I am not aware of anyone in any department or any chair of any commission ever saying that the fees that we collect should stay with us so that we decide how the money is spent. I don't think that's how our Board of Selectmen, Town Meeting, Board of Finance form of government works. And as Mr. Frieda has said many times, it is the Board of Finance who is charged with the very difficult task of determining the wants of the town versus the needs of the town, always keeping in mind the stress on the taxpayers' backs. And so I have to respectfully disagree with your hope that the fire fees will somehow be put in a fire department lockbox for this commission to decide how to spend on its own. I do understand your concern about apparatus. I do realize you've got a 30-plus year old apparatus, 25-year plus. But let me remind you, you've gotten some new stuff in the past 5 years, all of which I supported. I say this every time I can. I've supported every apparatus purchase that has come before the Board of Selectmen or a town meeting, including the $750,000 purchase of a new engine last February at a town meeting. I spoke in favor of that. So I do understand the needs for the apparatus, and it's unfortunate that one engine got hit on the highway, and it's unfortunate that one of the new engines we bought, I believe, 5 years ago, turned out to be a bit of a lemon, and was in the shop a lot. So I understand the challenges. But to say that, you know, we are generating these fees as of 4 years ago when this ordinance went into place, collecting this money. We collect it, we're earning it, we get to keep it, it doesn't go in the general fund. I found a little disturbing, and I wanted to share those comments with you. I thank you very much for your time.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your comments.
I just want to say that I actually had said when I found out what the fees were that were being generated by the work of the fire department. I think I'm actually the one who said that. I thought, not at the last meeting, but I had mentioned that I don't understand why the fire department can't use some of the funds that's being generated, supported by the personnel and the work of the fire department to be able to have their needs met. So, and having come off the Board of Ed, when we raised fees, it was supposed to go to help the Board of Ed pay for the costs of providing whatever it was, the rentals of the buildings and things like that. So that's where, when you see that the struggle that the fire department is having with being able to, you know, for me, it's very disturbing to me that there are delayed calls or missed calls, or that they go to start an engine and it doesn't start. So in terms of looking at where should these funds come from, I was the one who said I don't understand why the money that's generated because of the work of the fire department should go back to the fire department to support the work that they're doing. So that's where that came from. So I just wanted.
Okay, well, that's good. I appreciate that. The Board of Ed, which you were served on for 6 years, has its own unique sovereignty.
Yes, I know.
They get their money and they go with it. That, you know, we don't. The town has little say over what the Board of Ed does with the money that the Board of Finance through the referendum allocates to the Board of Ed. It's a little bit different on the town side. And I fully understand. You and I have disagreed before,
Yes.
But we respectfully disagree. And I supported your candidacy 100%, despite the fact that we disagree on issues. That's great. And
I just wanted to, I don't know if that's where that comment came from, but I had mentioned it,
Look, we thoroughly understand what the process is as far as the town is concerned, and my comments were a wish that those monies could in fact be set aside because of some of our conversation that we've had. We absolutely are aware who allocates the monies in this town. There's no question about it. But I think it's important for the public to understand, as you just articulated very clearly, there are a number of departments that generate revenue. Our department has been struggling for many years with apparatus, and it could in fact be a remedy to help to underwrite cost for very expensive apparatus that the department incurs. But I absolutely understand the process in town, and I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. But thank you.
It was your comment that it be set aside and not go into the general fund.
I understand completely.
All the departments work for the citizens of the town, and many of them, as I've articulated, collect money, lots of money.
I understand that completely.
And they don't get what they collect. No one would dare say, I want the town clerk would never say, I collected $750,000 in fees and licenses, I want a whole new office with that money. You know, that's not how it works.
I understand
All the
that.
money goes in, and as Mr. Frieda has said many times, the Board of Finance goes through the wants and the needs and makes its evaluation and makes its recommendation, and it's the citizens of North Haven that decide what gets spent where, when they approve or not approve a budget at referendum. I think it's great that we're collecting these fire fees, and I'm glad, very glad, that it went into effect prior to the Amazon project, because we
We
got
benefited
over $1
from it.
million in fees from that project. But we're not gonna have a $120, $130 million building built every year. So, that's not gonna happen every year, But it's great that we have these fire fees.
I understand that.
I just
Any-
have a question.
yeah.
Yes,
And I don't know the answer to this, so where does the police department forfeiture funds go? Does that go to the town?
the police what?
Forfeiture, the drug forfeiture monies that they collect, or they claim share of. If there's say there's a $250,000 drug bust in North Haven Police gets some of that money. I don't know if does that go into the towns?
I don't know, I'll have to go to a police commission meeting and ask the
Because I got a
chair.
feeling
I
that
would
it
have a
goes to the
feeling
police
that,
department so that they can buy vehicles and protection gear and weapons and things of that nature. So to say that what Mr. Nozzolillo has said was so outrageous, I don't think it was outrageous at all, since it's done, I think. I'm not positive.
I would think something like the forfeiture of contraband or other property, I'll have to double check, Commissioner, but I would think that's controlled by state statute. But, the police department collects other fees, even if it's just copy fees for their
Oh,
reports.
sure. I mean,
And it goes into the
tickets
general
and
fund. As I said,
permits and that kind of thing.
there's,
Sure.
they're right on here, police, and it goes into the general fund with all these other 12 or 15 sources of revenue that are collected from the
But I
various
think drug
departments.
forfeiture money is
Yeah.
a different category.
I don't know about that, I haven't looked into that. I can't answer that, but,
Well, I certainly appreciate you bringing this to our attention. Thank you.
Yeah, and
Did you
I-
have any other comments?
no, that was it.
All right, I thank you very much.
appreciate your time and attention, and everyone drive safely out there. It's
Yeah,
very
you as
nice.
well, thank you.
Yes.
Any other public comments? Hearing none, well, I'll accept the motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any question on the motion? All in favor? So moved. I'd like to reconvene the Tuesday, December 17, 2019 North Haven Fire Commission meeting to order. And I'd like to ask Commissioner Zuccarelli to make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to offer employment to William Berry, Company 2 Monowese, as a permanent employee of the town of North Haven.
Do I hear a second to the motion?
Second.
Any question on the motion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved. Would you ask
I got it.
Want,
Convene though.
Mr. Berry? I'm sorry?
Convene though, we don't need to call, we don't need to do it on the tape. We can
Okay.
conclude the meeting.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make everyone aware that the next regular meeting of the Board of Fire Commission will be Tuesday, January 28th, 2020, at 6 p.m. In the training room at Northeast Company 4, 366 Washington Avenue, North Haven. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Well, excuse me, before I do that, I'd like to welcome Commissioner Caldwell. Thank you very much for joining us and being part of our commission. We welcome you. I'd like to wish everyone a happy holiday and a Merry Christmas. And again, thank you for all of your service to our town. Thank you. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? This meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.